Good morning, friends, and welcome to today's cichlids and coffee. There we go. That's better. How are you doing? Hope wherever you are, you're having a great cup of Joe, preferably in one of these cups. Oh, yeah. Okay. And I hope you're putting it down in one of these coasters. These are our new cichlids and coffee coasters. I've been giving these away, and I like them. So, how are you doing? Are you having a good weekend? And how's the weather? It's cold here. Pretty cold. It's going to get a lot colder. We're supposed to get possibly snow. So let's see here. Let's take a look at the AV. Let me get an AV check. How we doing both with sound and picture? If one of you can help me out, let me know. Watson Aquatics in the house. Could you maybe give me some insight on placement, location of two canister filters, intakes, and returns? I will go ahead and definitely talk about that. Watson Aquatics. Let's see here. I'm looking at the comments. Looks like Paul Newman was first to arrive. Hey, Cat Sailor, Sailing Aquatics, one of my wonderful moderators. Angelo's in the house. And Peas and Haps Forever in the house. Michael Lotanero. Hello, Michael. Good to see you. Eric Isaacson. Cheers to you, my friend. Cruise Aquatics is here. Michelle Crisco. Hello to you, fishy friend. Hey, Adam. Good to see you there, buddy. 3G in the house. William Dyer. R. Baglio. Ronald. Tracy. Z-Zip. We've got some a good group. Nick Everett's here. What is that, Zell? Hey to you. That's Z-E-L. My eye is working right this morning. Austin John's in the house. Hello, Austin. All right, so I've got a Robin Rayner also here. Thumbs up to you, my friend. Good morning. So we have, I think, a good topic. I mean, it's always a good topic to get into tank stability and fish health. That's something that is good to talk about. So we'll be getting into that. And Watson Aquatics says it's clear here. Okay, good. So the AV is good. Thank you for that. Sometimes it takes a second for the chat to actually show up on my screen. Jay Fuller in the house. Hello to you. T&Z's Fish House is here. Alison A.S. Did you receive the email with the red rainbow fish pics? I don't think I did. Can you resend that to ben.o.cichlid at Gmail? And I'll be sure to check, make sure it didn't go into spam. Usually it doesn't, but I'll check. So we'll talk about stability. We'll talk about fish health, tank stability, and some interesting things that occurred this week. I did get some more fish, as you know. I picked up some Congo tetras that are absolutely beautiful from our channel sponsor. And while I'm thinking about it, let's do a very quick bill paying. This is something that is just a reality of YouTube. But if you folks want to support the channel, consider when you go to Amazon. I was surprised that a lot of folks don't know about this. When you go to Amazon, use /shop/ben.o.chart. Now, what that'll do is it'll take you into my store, but you don't have to buy anything at the store. You can then pop out of that and go do your Amazon shopping. But because you got to Amazon using my link, it will actually support the channel. So it's kind of cool. So consider using that when you go to Amazon. I was surprised the other day to find out that folks have sort of forgotten about that. Also, if you folks are looking for fish or fish food or dry goods, consider the sponsor of the channel, Cunningham Tropicals. He has created a discount coupon for you for 15% off on fish, ben.o.cichlid, and 10% off on dry goods, including his own house formula for food. That would be ben.o.10. And I tell you, for somebody that saw that video, those I've never had that occur before. I've seen videos of fish that were frozen solid and then came back to life. And so, in the words of my wife, good thing you didn't toss them or throw them out, because a couple of them were straight up and down and drifting in the bag from just getting, I think, cooled down. They were just cooled down from the outside temperature and the heat pack getting exhausted. But when they warmed up, they all bounced back. It was like literally a fish miracle in my experience. I've never had that happen before. Now, a big shout out to all of you who are Patreon members. And again, another way to support the channel, apart from being here and participating and watching the videos, is becoming a member of the Garage Gang and a Patreon supporter. If you're watching if you're on a PC or laptop, it's in the banner. There's a logo you can click on, and that will that little P, that bar in the circle, which I guess is a P for Patreon. You can click on that. That'll take you to Patreon. But also, it's in the description too, how to get to Patreon. But thank you so much to my Patreon monthly supporters. They're the ones that you really kind of give me the wiggle room to do things like pick up more fish, pick up more equipment, take trips to things like Aquashella, that sort of thing. You folks really help with that a lot. So there you go. Just got to pay some bills sometimes. So let's just do the official start of this live stream. There you have it. We're official now. All right. So now one of you asked a question that I thought was pretty good right off the bat, and you asked me about insight on the placement and location of 2 canister filters. Now, it does have something to do with the gallons per hour of those canister filters and the size of the aquarium. But if it's a very large aquarium, if it's a 6 or 7 foot across aquarium, you're going to have some impact. Certainly, you're going to have some surface tension breakup, but you're not going to create a tremendous amount of water circulation. Some, but not a tremendous amount. If you're in a 75 or a 55, 40 breeder, and you're using 2 cans, you're going to create a lot of movement. Now, the question becomes, do you want that movement? Do you want mostly water circulation now, or do you want oxygenation? Now, if you want oxygenation, put the outputs near the surface so that they're just right at the surface, maybe a little bit out of the surface. Just watch out when you lower the water line, like during a water change, because it'll fire water sometimes quite a distance and maybe onto the floor. So just watch out with that. But I've got the outputs on the 300 that I'm looking right at right now, the 300 gallon. It has the 2 Seashea 5.0 pumps coming up from the sump, and those outputs, like here's the water level and here's the lock line. Those outputs are like right there. They're like right there. Now that's for 2 reasons. One is to break up the surface to create oxygen, and the other one is to create a back siphon in the event that we have a power outage or the pumps stop working. I don't want that line to be a back siphon to overflow the sump. So it fills up with air right away and the siphon breaks. Now, regarding your 2 canisters, I would just put it at the 2 back corners and point the returns at 45-degree angles. And what this does is it'll create water movement towards the front center of the tank. And then the water will come together and disperse and possibly even create a couple circular motions. And you'll get this sort of confluence, I guess you call it a confluence of water. So 45-degree angles from the corners with the outputs, and then move your intakes just a little bit in from that, right? From each, maybe, I don't know, just a few inches away from that, in a little bit. Makes it real easy. So you have one canister coming up there, another canister coming up on the other side, and 45-degree angles. So you're creating water shooting at a 45-degree angle towards the front center, creating a confluence and water movement. And there's a couple good reasons for that. One of them, of course, is that you're gonna be creating a nice even temperature aquarium, because your water is circulating nicely, and so the temperature is going to be smooth and throughout the tank. There isn't going to be any colder or hotter spots, and the oxygen is going to be equally distributed throughout the entire tank. So that would be my first choice. Now, there's folks out there who would say put both of your outputs on one side and create a complete circular. So you have one output going like if you're looking at the tank, one output is in the left corner going left to right, and then the other one is in the back going along the back. So you have a circular motion going on in the aquarium. And that's another school of thought, and that is totally acceptable, and that would work. So whatever you prefer. So I don't think you can go wrong either way. I do love breaking up the surface. I do think that very often folks have less oxygen than they need, not just for the fish, but your beneficial bacteria needs oxygen, right? Your aerobic beneficial bacteria. If you have a tank that's low on O2, your beneficial bacteria is also going to die off. So there you go. Those are my 2 cents, Watson's Aquatics, and I hope that helped. I hope that made sense to you. I am looking at the chat. Well, it looks like we have a lot of good questions here before I even get to today's topic. Let's see here. Is that Zell? JP, how often would you change clear pads and FX? Okay, so you're asking JP? Now, I'll comment on that. I mean, the big clear pads on the outside of an FX6, I have a new set that I bought 2 or 3 years ago. I've never changed them. I just keep rinsing and reusing. And I will change them when they start to fall apart. When you start washing them and just chunks of sponge are falling apart, I'll swap them out. But until then, they're working fine. Good morning, Kendall. Good to see you, Kendall G. Atkins Nature Aquariums in the house. Hey to you, my friend. SWFL Treasure Detecting. Indigos? Is that what it is? Indigos? All right, treasure detecting. Do you go around with a one of those treasure detectors? I don't know. That's one of those things I'd love to go do at the beach someday. Let's see. JP Reptiles. Man, I tell you, I don't open my canisters for 9 months to a year, and I credit that to the pre-filters. The pre-filters are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I rinse those every 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and I think they keep the inside of the canister looking pretty good. And what that means is that the beneficial bacteria that is habitating the inside of the canister is getting good, clean water running over it, and it isn't being too gunked up. So even though, if you follow my channel, you know that when it comes to beneficial bacteria, I'm very much into this right here. the substrate. You see the darkness down there? That's all good stuff. That's all good stuff. Don't clean that out. Leave it alone. And it's actually munching on ammonia and munching on nitrite. And maybe if it's deep enough, it might be munching on nitrate. So there you go. This is a different perspective. You don't normally see this tank up close and personal during a live stream. Usually I'm in front of the 300 or the 220, but I thought we would feature this 90-gallon today. This tank is, oh, look at that. The electric blue Ochart eating some of the hornwort. You little sucker. So I've got a UV, that green killing machine. I've got their biggest unit. I think it's 25 watts, 29 watts. I've got an Airstone, which has a lithium battery, so it'll run in the event of a power outage. I have 2 Emperor 400 canisters on this, a deep substrate, artificial, and some real plants are in here. There's real wood, Zumed Mopani wood, and some nice stone. I don't think it's dragon stone, but there's some nice stone in here. You've got 1 AC Hecli, 2 Severums, a couple electric blue Ocharas, a Siamese algae eater, some Buenos Aires tetras. And this might become a discus tank. I love the height of it, so I think that would make it a good display for discus. I mean, can you imagine about 6 or 7, I don't know, maybe even 5, good size, 5-inch or more, discus floating around in here? I think that would be phenomenal with a bunch of live plants. Just fill it up with live plants and some peaceful tank mates. Maybe put those Congo tetras in here. They might be a little too active for discus, but maybe the albino Hecali's, I mean, who knows? We'll see. It's a work in progress, as you very much know. Atkins Nature Aquariums got rid of my canisters and went sump. Sump is the king of filtration. I have canisters on with my sumps. I just like to have redundancy. I'm just crazy about redundancy. Hey, Zen Ginger, in the house. I'm glad you're here. You have a seahorse tank? I am so jealous. I love seahorse. You have a they're not the easiest to take care of, I hear, but what an amazing, amazing little critter. I'd love to see that sometime. Send me a photo if you ever get it, if you'd like to get around to it. I'd love to see your seahorses. Michael Welsh in the house, Q&A today. Let's see. All right, so we also have some inner chat discussions going on, which is always cool. So let's talk a little bit about today's topic. I took some notes. Brenda Locke in the house. Hi there. Brenda, why do you want that? Why do you want that cichlid to come to the top? Are you worried about him? Is he acting? Does he have clamped fins? Brenda is asking, I just got a cichlid and won't come to the top. Now, it could be a variety of reasons. Could be intimidated. I mean, it could be like subdominant and doesn't want to get up there while fish are feeding. Considers that to be the territory of another fish. So be sure to feed something that drops, food that actually drops so that they get some food. Oh, I get it, Zen. All right. Well, when you get that seahorse tank set up, I'd love to see it. And getting back to Brenda's question, it could be a variety of reasons. I would suspect subdominance. If the fins are clamped, it's not active. If it's coloring down a little bit, you might have a sick fish. Did you quarantine that fish before you added them to the main tank? That would be my question and my concern if there was a quarantine. GP in the house. Hello, GP. And by the way, GP, I forgot to mention, I did get that very nice comment from you by email, and I want to thank you for that. That was very nice of you to say, and just very nice of you. So, now what is that? Utah and Kicks? Utah and Kicks? We got some great new names here that I don't think I've ever seen before. All right, let's take a look here. So a couple things that are related to today's topic. Let's get into today's topic here. And first of all, the first thing I would suggest, and I've done this too many times myself, and that is buying a fish and then finding out about the fish. Have you ever done that? Have you ever bought a fish, you loved it, you brought it home, and then you started researching and realized that your parameters or the tank mates, your water conditions, the size of your tank, whatever, what you're feeding them is not right for that fish. So this kind of gets into the motto, the motto of the theme of this channel, which is always be learning, right? And we all learn from each other. So I did that not that long ago, and you get the fish, you're excited, it's an impulse purchase, and then after you buy the fish, it's the sequence is backwards. It's like, hey, come on, pants, then shoes. Put your pants on, then put your shoes on. That's the right sequence. Don't buy fish and then find out about the fish. I've done that. So my first tip is to research, find out before you hit the buy button, before you pull the trigger, and you'll end up in better shape. Now, be honest. How many of you out there have bought a fish like that on impulse? Come on, come clean. You'll feel better. All right. Learn now. Nuances about the fish. Is that fish from fast-moving water? Do they come from a lake? Do they come from a stream, a river? Because that will impact the type of water movement that you're going to want in that aquarium. You buy like a hill stream loach. I understand you're probably going to want to have a power head, at least a wave maker in there, because they love that water flow, right? Where other fish hate that water flow. I found out the other day that red tears actually like water flow. They like to have good water flow in the aquarium. So I took that Expert-Matic and turned it slightly, or before it was hitting the wall because I didn't want to move the water too much. Now I'm pointing it right to the middle of the tank, and the red tear doesn't seem to mind. And of course, there's some obvious things. What's the pH that fish likes to be in? What kind of food do they need? Do they need vegetables? Do they need high protein? You need to be giving them worms, algae, just basics like that, right? So learn before you go. And I certainly have done that backwards many times. Somebody asked me for the two best tips I could ever give them. I said, pants, then shoes. And then the second tip was never take a sleeping pill and a laxative before going to bed. Never take them together. So those are my two best tips. See, you didn't think this was a life improvement channel, did you? See? All right, my next tip for stability and health of fish is, of course, start with good stock. Start with good stock. Now, I think the best you can get is, and I'll put it like in a hierarchy, I guess. The best you could get would be a local breeder. A local breeder who has the fish in your kind of water that's available locally, right? That fish was born and has lived, and his fish have been in your kind of water for generations. That would be like a great, and a person's been doing it for a while. You meet him at the local club, and they've been breeding for 20 years. They've got established tanks, and that would probably be number one. Number two would be from reputable vendors who really they have a lot at stake. We get into your Cunningham Tropicals, right? You get into your, your vendors out there, even the co-op or other vendors out there that if Dave's and Dan's, both of them, right? Live Fish Direct, fish that they can't send out bad fish. And if a fish goes out that has a problem, they need to fix it quick because the internet is brutal, right? I mean, the comments and internet reputation is brutal, and it's fast and it's deadly. So the picking fish up from a reputable reputable source. First, for good stock, I would say a local breeder, only because of water conditions. And next would be and then of course your local privately owned fish store who has their tanks on separate filtration and is putting fish through quarantine, usually a medicated quarantine, before offering them to the public. Now that would be like on that list. Below that, I guess that's where we start getting into your big box stores, discount online fish vendors, like bidding sites, where you can go and bid on fish, and from vendors you don't really know or would probably have difficulty contacting if there's a problem. Local fish store, your big box, your PetSmart, your Petcos, your pet supermarkets. These places now are getting better with their filtration, and they're getting better with their guarantees, their warranties. In other words, you can take a fish back in some cases within 30 days with a sample of your water, and they'll swap it out. So now, you still got a quarantine. No matter where you get the fish from, in my opinion, that's my opinion. You may or may not. And if you bring in a fish from a source that like a big box store, and that fish ends up contaminating your tank and you lose a lot of fish, taking back that one fish or that 2 or 3 fish that contaminated your tank after you've lost 70% of your stock isn't going to matter much. So again, start with good stock from somebody that you trust. And if you go the big box route, and sometimes, look, I've gotten some great fish from big box stores. Great fish. But you can be pretty sure I put them through a 4 to 6 week quarantine before they got anywhere near the show tank. Next point. The next point. For those of you who just tuned in, we are on today's topic. The next point is stability. Now, you can't, I think there's a lot to be said for not making any kind of drastic changes or putting your fish through any kind of unnecessary minor or major shock. So stability. Now, stability, when you think of stability, what do you think of? Usually you think of temperature and pH, right? Temperature and pH. Those are the two that most folks think of with stability. And one thing to keep in mind is if you have a tank with a lot of buffering, like a lot of crushed coral or aragonite, things like that in it, and let's say for whatever reason you do water changes a month to 6 weeks apart. In some cases, some people go 2 months. That tank pH, no doubt, has shifted gently, but still shifted from what is coming out of the tap. So if you do a 90%, well, it's been over a month. Let me do a 90% water change because it's been a month. Because it's been longer, might be a good reason to go with a smaller water change or a water change that more or less trickles the water into the aquarium. So let's say you do a 60% water change. It's been 6 weeks. You've got a lot of crushed coral, a lot of aragonite. That water has buffered quite a bit compared to your tap. So when you start to refill it, don't go full blast. Just go light, go easy. Just a slow flow, and the fish will sort of, not a drip, right? But slow enough so that nobody's going to get really shocked. This will be particularly gentle in a larger tank because you have more dilution going on. So it'll be a little bit more gentle. But a slow fill on a buffered tank, especially if you're taking a long gap between water changes, I think is a good idea. And this may be why some of you have a die-off after a water change, even though you're saying, wait a minute, my water parameters are good. I conditioned the water. I temperature matched. Yeah, but you did a 90% water change on a very different pH, and the pH shocked the fish, and so you had some die-off. So you may want to go a little slow on that refill. So temp, stability, those are your avoid shock. I've said this 1,000 times, don't do too much at once. If you have a sump and a canister, don't service them both. In this case, I have two hang-on backs. I never service both of them. I service one of them, and then I'll wait a few weeks, maybe even a month. I'll service the other one. So I'll alternate, right? And I usually don't do it when I'm doing a water change. So I'll do a water change on Sunday, service a canister on a Thursday, wait a couple weeks, service a hang-on back on a Thursday, then wait a couple weeks, do the other hang-on back. So it's always kind of gradual and easy, and nobody's getting, there's very little chance of an ammonia spike. Now, I talked about this point earlier. I talked about water movement. Be aware of the water movement preferences of your fish. This goes into the realm of stress, creating a stress-free environment, creating more optimal water movement. Some fish don't care. Like I think your big cichlids, they're strong enough and big enough where they don't really maybe care that much. Even though I did find out that like an eye biter, your big flat, your tall flat fish, they don't like a lot of water movement because they get pushed around. But your bigger fish are probably not going to mind, but some fish thrive in water movement, and some fish, your angels, your discus, they don't do well. in high water movement. So again, just think, know about your fish, and maybe don't mix fish together that have different requirements for water movement. Now we get into a general topic that ties into a lot of opinion, and we get into the topic of filtration and how much filtration, how much turnover. I think the sweet spot is 5 to 10 times, but that has that can tie into how heavily stocked is the aquarium, and how much are you feeding, how much waste is being produced. Certainly with a heavily stocked tank with big fish, big cichlids, you probably want to be in that closer to 10 times. In other words, your gallon per hour turnover on your filtration is close to 10 times. Keeping in mind that it's going to be less than what you think it is when you figure things slowing down over time because media gets blocked and things like that, head pressure on plumbing, things like that. So having the right amount of turnover, that's going to be important. Proper filtration. And what is proper filtration? I mean, you want to get into a long discussion, get into that one. Some people will tell you large sponges. Some will say you've got to go sump or nothing, sump or go home. Some people love internal filters. So again, it's a topic, and then you get into the brands of those different, like what makers make the better one. I mean, you can go on forever on that, right? All right. Now here's one that you've heard me talk about before, and it's the one place. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do that's DIY. You can buy filter media and cut it for your filters and just reuse it, rinse and reuse it forever, and that can be the only media you use, I think, and you'd be okay. So you can kind of like save a little money there. You can go to Home Depot and buy some lighting, some lighting at Home Depot and hang it over the aquarium. You can go to the local quarry and buy some rocks, and you can harvest wood, locally. Just go to the local lake and find some driftwood, or and really clean it up. Really, I mean, there's a lot of places you can kind of cut corners and stuff. But the one place I say don't cut corners is food. Really try and feed your fish. Try and feed them the best food. You know what I like. I like Extreme. I like Sarah. I like Northfin and Piscine. And I haven't tried any of Josh's food yet. I love what Super Cichlids is doing with blackworms. And so there are some good quality foods out there that don't have a lot of ash and cereal, right? A lot of soys and wheat and things that the fish would never come across. Dyes, a lot of binding agents, things like that that you really don't need. So and then give them some variety. I feed my fish a mix of food, but I also include frozen foods. My African cichlids get frozen krill. The South and Central Americans get a little bit of krill, but they also get blackworms and some of the frozen worms from Aquarium Co-op. They also get bloodworms. These guys get bloodworms. So variety. Include a little variety in there just to spice it up, and don't feed. If you want to keep your water, on the cleaner side, don't overfeed. And again, I've said this at times. My fish are done eating within 30 seconds. A minute max. 30 seconds is what I usually look for. they'll just gobble it up in 30 seconds. So if there's food floating around longer than that, you're probably overfeeding. That's my guess. And that's going to create more ammonia, more nitrates. So feed the best food you can. And the truth is when you're feeding good quality food, and this was a point that was made by, I think, Darius at Northfin, and also the reps from Sarah, you can, and also I think the folks over at Piscine, the owner of Piscine, told me that when they were working with the large aquariums, the large like public aquariums, their food was more expensive, but they were able to feed a third of what they were feeding before. So it was actually less expensive because higher quality food doesn't have the fish wasting energy trying to pass fillers that are not bioavailable. And so higher quality food, you can actually feed less and give the fish better nutrition. So just keep that in mind too. You don't need to feed as much when you're feeding high quality food. Window liquor number 5. Window liquor number 5. Oh my goodness. Hey, Lisa in the house. Good to see you. I like that topic the other night you had about if you had $1,000, what would you do? And I really regretted missing that because that's what happened. I left California with about $800, $1,000 in the money I had made from selling everything, and arrived to an empty garage. And anyway, I just thought I could have participated in that conversation a little bit. Hey, Josh. Josh is in the house. Cunningham Tropicals. Good to see you there, buddy. Give John a hug from me, Lisa. But, you know, like man to man, nothing romantic, if you know what I mean. So, let's see. I got distracted there by the lovely Lisa. Let's see here. Brenda was asking, can I put salt in the water? These guys were getting salt with every water change when I was battling hole in the head. And if you can see them, there's no marks on them anymore. Yay, they've healed up. And you know, there was UV, there was big water changes, there was salt. At one point, there was Paracleanse. There was a lot of steps I took, but I was putting a tablespoon of dissolved salt for every 5 gallons, and they did fine. They did fine. I think the only fish you would have to be concerned about would be some of your scaleless fish, maybe some invertebrates might not tolerate salt, right? So, you know, definitely look into it before you do it. So let's see here. I think I was looking at a question, and then what happened? I just lost it. Just completely brain farted. All right. So I've got 3 more points for you, and then we'll just open this up to open discussion. The next point is the reduction of overall stress and for fish health and stability. And there's so many ways you can reduce stress. There's some obvious ways, right? I mean, I've already talked about some of them. Proper pH, steady temp, good quality food. An important point as well is proper tank mates, right? Not have nippers in with fish with thread fins, or fish with high fin fish, or don't have fish that like to nip. Don't have fish that are not compatible. Like, I don't mix lakes. I don't even mix Mabuna and haps and peacocks. All I've got are basically haps, and so I don't even put peacocks in there with them. So I try and keep it as close as I can, even though I do have South and Central mixed together. And some people would look at that and go, wait a minute, shouldn't those all be South or all be Central? So you can make a case against that. But your tank mates are related to stress. Also related to stress is how much you fuss with the tank. Every time you do a water change, every time you clean the panels, every time you mess with the plants, every time you redecorate, every time you vacuum, every time you rake the sand, all that, all of it, it produces stress. All of it is stress producing. So again, and you've seen that T-shirt. Where is it? I think I might have even forgot to have mentioned. Here it is. Hold on. Over on Teespring, you've got mugs and hoodies and stuff like that, but you also have this one T-shirt that says "For success, mess less." So check out the Teespring store. And I saw somebody at Aquashella wearing that. I thought it was so cool. It said "For success, mess less." And so visit my Teespring store. Another good way to support the channel, but just something, just a shameless plug. But yeah, for success, mess less. The less you do, the better your fish are going to do. Another thing that I'm doing, and I've started doing recently, not recently, maybe the last 3 months, it was part of the treatment of this tank, because I found out that geos and hecali will eat fruit that falls into where they live down in South Central America. They'll have fruit and things fall into the water, and they'll eat that. And so that gives them certain vitamins and nutrients that might not be available in flakes and pellets. Again, some of your better quality flakes and pellets will have that, but so I started adding Vitachem. So I do add Vitachem. So I add, it's a teaspoon for every 50 gallons. So when I do a water change, I hit the tanks with Vitachem. And I think that's been helping. I think that's been helping a little bit, adding some nutrients to the water. And that gets me into my final topic. And I'm not going to get into an argument about the value and virtue of water changes. I just feel very strongly, because of when I look at the fish after a water change, they look better to me, not because of water clarity, but because of color and behavior. In some cases, they get into breeding dress, like in your cichlids, you'll see that. Those are all good signs. And so fresh water, and that means water changes, whether you're doing 10%, 20%, top-offs, 70%, whatever works for you, you keep going with that. I'm not going to tell you how much or when or whatever, but give them fresh water. Reduce the hormones in the water. Remineralize the water. Something interesting about minerals. The minerals intake, your fish need minerals, and some of it is in the food. Again, good quality food. I can't stress it enough. But a lot of the minerals are taken in by the fish through the sort of osmosis, through their scales, right? And they'll only have access to the minerals that are in the water. Well, guess what? Over time, minerals settle. They will settle in the aquarium. Now, naturally, if you have a lot of water movement, you're probably helping with that. Another reason to have good water movement, keep minerals in the water column. However, when you do a water change, you remineralize the water. Now, that's assuming that you're not using a reverse osmosis, because if you're using reverse osmosis, you're removing everything, including minerals, if I understand that correctly. So you have to remineralize the water. So that's my final tip, is fresh water, for many reasons that I'm not even thinking of. All right, let's get into your topics. Are you ready for 15 seconds of fame? The 15-second of fame screen. Let's take a look at some of your comments and see what you're up to. I show 121 people on the stream. That is excellent. Now, when Josh talks about water changes, I think we're talking about, just like with Lisa, we're talking about something very different. And we're talking about what, Josh, like 60 tanks? I complain about the couple hours after spending here doing my water changes. But when you get into people like Josh and folks out there that have big fish rooms, I imagine, Dan's and anyway, some of those folks out there, I can't even imagine. Are you automated, Josh? Are your water changes automated? And Lisa, are your betta tanks automated for water changes? I'd be curious if you have those automated. Or maybe you just have an ongoing drip that is replacing evaporation, because that would also do it. I know you have. If you haven't seen it, check out the KG Tropicals betta. What they built for bettas, it's just like it's high end, very high end. It's like an ideal world for betta. Zell wants to know about the best lights. Just white? You don't want full spectrum. Well, that's interesting. I think full spectrum is most like sunlight, and sunlight brings out the best colors. So that would be my... Now, that being said, there are some great lights out there. And again, you get into this discussion and we'll get into a lot of, well, I like this one, I like that one. Some people like the fluval lights. There's some very expensive lights out there, your Kessels. Just white? I mean, Beamswork is a great light. I think you can reduce the blue in it and go mostly white. I think that same thing with the Higer lights, the Best Fish lights. Higers are actually good lights. I like Higer lights, and they have a higher end called Aqua, AQUA, Aqua. The lights I have from a Co-op, almost all my lights are Co-op. I think all of them are Co-op except for one small tank, but they're full spectrum. They're designed for planted tanks. So if you want just white, you don't want full spectrum, the Co-ops wouldn't work for you. But definitely the check out the prices and quality of the Higers. The beams work, and I had some good luck with J, C, and P. J like John, C like Charlie, and P like Paul. Yeah, check those out. I mean, there's a lot of choices out there. That's right. GP says full spectrum mimics natural light, which I like. I mean, the most beautiful color I've seen on African cichlids was when I had them set up in California, where I could open a window and just have sunlight on them. It would just blow you away at the color that you would get on them. So just something to keep in mind. And but again, if you have a lot of sunlight on them, you're going to get algae. That's just the way it goes. All right, so I'm looking at the chat. Michael loves his fluval lights. Now, see, some lights have a lot of controls, so you can dial it in, like the Best Fish, ABEST. Is it called ABEST? I did a review on them. You control it with an app, and you can make that light all white. So any light out there that has the Wi-Fi app control function is going to give you that, and you can pay extra and get that attachment for BeamsWorks, and there's a lot of other ones out there that have that. You fan kicks. You thank kicks. Am I pronouncing that right? Says, I think almost any light can work as long as it's safe. Clamp light with full spectrum LED, shop lights, budget, and high-end aquarium lights, they all work. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen people do very nice setups with, they'll just buy some like outdoor floodlight type thing and hang it over the tank. But your point about making sure it's secure, yeah, you don't want to do that in a way that could result in that light falling in the tank. Or position the light where you might touch it while you're working on the tank, because you're dealing with lights that would get very, very hot to the touch. So, Fluval Aqua Sky. Harsh truth. The harsh truth is I have a Fluval Aqua Sky and it's so good. I hear good things about Fluval. I mean, the Fluval lights, I hear nothing but good things about them. Austin Johns, I have 5 young frontosas, one of which is growing faster than the rest. The large fish also is bullying the others. One of them hides behind the canister uptake filter. Any tips? Well, I have an entire playlist on aggression. I've learned about aggression the hard way, and by the hard way I mean through the loss of a lot of fish over the years. I laugh to keep from crying. Your choice is, first of all, very curious how that one is growing faster. I suspect he's probably hogging the food. So be sure that you're feeding to opposite sides of the tank when you feed, so that the less dominant fish can get to the food, and be sure you're feeding both floating and sinking food. Or that big dominant fish is going to just hog it all up and use those nutrients to just become Godzilla. So your choices are pretty simple. I mean, if he becomes too rough and outpaces and outgrows the other fish too quickly and becomes too hostile, you're going to have to remove him. You're going to have to make a choice, and you're probably going to have to rehome him. Rehome is a polite word for saying take him to the fish store, or put him on Craigslist, or put him in a tank where he's by himself. If you put him in a tank where he's by himself, let the other fish catch up, get some swagger, put on some size and some girth, and then reintroduce him to the tank, and maybe he'll come in at a less dominant spot. But I have found that once a fish is a jerk, they will continue to be a jerk. That's been my experience. And the only thing that handled it completely was to rehome that fish. So that's my take on it. It might be all you can do on that kind of a situation. Sadly, because sometimes you just fall in love with those fish. I'm going to probably have to confront something like that with my red tear. I mean, if I breed the red tear, I may have to separate them, because I have a divider, but splitting a 55 for a red tear is a kind of a small space. But let's say I introduce the red tear back to the 210 gallon, and he starts being his name and terrorizing other fish. And I don't want to keep him in a tank as small as a 55. I'm going to have to make a decision. I mean, what do I do? Do I Do I set up a 120 and have him be a one fish tank? Do I rehome him? I mean, I love that fish. He's a beautiful fish, and I would hate to have to not have him. All right, let's see here. All right, if you have a question for me, hit me. And if I got any super chats, I missed them, and I'm sorry. I wasn't looking for them. But if you did super chat or if you did subscribe during today's live stream, thank you for that. And if you gave it a thumbs up, thank you for that. I am cruising the chat. Airy first, talking about Anubius and low light. Anubius loves low light, and interestingly enough, there's a sort of a symbiotic relationship going on between the hornwort and the Anubius in the tank behind me. When the hornwort has drifted over the Anubius seems to do a little better because it creates a shadow over that Anubius. I think Anubius comes from the name of the god of shadow, or the god of the shadow world, or the god of the underworld. So it actually, in the name, tells you that it is a plant that prefers shade. And so the Anubius in the tank behind me, let me do this. Let me show you what I'm talking about. You folks want to take a little tour of the fish room with me? A live tour of the fish room. Let's go ahead and do that. Let me change the screen that we're on. There we go. Now let me set up the camera. So I'm going to put you on a Be Right Back screen. Hold on for just a few minutes while I turn off the spotlights, the video lights, and turn the camera around. Hold on. All right, so here's the 55-gallon planted community tank. What have I got going on in there? You can see there's Anubius. There's Crips. I've got a nice group of schooling Rasboras, some Harlequins. Got some lemon tetras in there. You've got the Heckleis, right? The albino Acaras in there, putting on some size and swagger before they go over to the 90 or wherever I end up putting them. If you look in the bottom left there, you'll see a group of rummy nose and some neon tetras. There's some cories in there, some red serpas. There's a little armored catfish in there, and so you've got just a good variety. I think I got 3 cories. I got a couple little plecos in there. There's some red tail rasboras. You can see that hornwort. It just sort of drifts around, and very often it comes over to the left. I kind of like it. I like it on the left side, but the bulk of the Anubias and the Java fern is on the right side. There's also a little bit of jungle val, which hasn't grown quite as fast and spread as quickly as I hoped it would. Now this tank does have. I do use the Easy Green liquid fertilizer in this tank from Co-op. I do use the little root tabs that you push under the substrate around the plants, and I do have the Co-op heaters and lights on this tank. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see him, but the red tear is out, and he spends a lot of his time staring at the fish in the 55-gallon. See if I can move the camera so you can see him. It's a beauty. And very often when I film, I can't catch him because he's just hiding inside that cave or behind the cave. I think he might have gotten too big to get in the cave. So I may have to call up Unique Underwater Galleries and see if they have a bigger cave, because he's been hiding behind the cave recently. Let's go back to the 90-gallon. I'm not sure if you can, how well you can make out the fish from this angle, but you can see they're all doing exceptional. If I was to put the albino acaras in here, I would probably have to take out the Buenos Aires tetras and that Siamese algae eater, because I wouldn't want to have any fish that could be a nipper. I wouldn't want any nipping fish in this tank. You can see I've got a couple severums in here. The red shoulder severum is in the back corner. Not sure if you can make him out, but you got a nice big hecali that's right there in the corner. A couple nice big geos, and those 2 electric blue acaras who have really blossomed. They really blossomed after coming to the 90-gallon. One of them, as I've mentioned before, was completely gray when he came over, and now he's just got some great color. That one on the lower electric blue acara. The red spotted hecali, or the red spotted severum, is acting very cautious. I haven't fed him this morning, and the red shoulder goes after him, tries to move him out before a feeding. But he does get to the food. Let me see if I can swing this around and get over to the African cichlid tank, and also to the South and Central American, the 210 and the 300-gallon. So there's your 210-gallon aquarium. You can see everybody in there is just doing great. Let me get a close-up. The Vieja is still keeping up in size with the Oscar, but I think eventually, of course, the Oscar will get larger. The albino continues to be a little bit of a runt compared to the red tiger. Jack Dempsey's hanging out in the back there. Usually the Nicaragua hangs out in this corner. This is, I mentioned earlier, harvesting wood locally. This wood was harvested locally at a local lake and cleaned up and brought over. There's one of the chocolate cichlids right behind the Oscar. Both of them are behind the Oscar. There's the Salvini and the Firemouth. Oh, there's the Nicaragua right there. There's another chocolate cichlid, and there's the green tear. Those silver dollars continue to thrive. I was a little leery at first. I thought maybe they would get attacked or munched, but the other fish have no interest in them whatsoever. They do stay in a pretty tight school. They were not schooling that much before. I think they school tighter to the degree that they're in a tank where they could be in possible danger. So they started schooling pretty tight once I put them in the 210. All right, I'm going to go the long way around and let's go over to the African cichlid tank. So there you go. This tank, as you know, is about 7 feet across. And everybody is doing well in here. I did have a fish that I think just kind of lived its lifespan. I had the tangerine tiger, and he finally passed away. Didn't have anything contagious. I think he was just got old and just started to wear out the way older fish do. And he just hung out near the back of the aquarium until he finally passed away. But all the other fish are doing great. Get you a little close up on them. Buccochromis rhodesii yellow. Very dominant fish, but not really the tank boss. He might have been for a minute or two. There's that sand diver. Love that sand diver. The turquoise in there. You have a gar. Malawi gar. Fusco. The Fusco is probably dominant over that Buccochromis rhodesii yellow. Just a bigger, thicker fish. And of course, Nippochromis do tend to be more aggressive. My little runt Venusis. And there's the probably the star of the tank is that trout. He just gets a lot of attention. A beautiful fish. Just a big torpedo of a fish. That hawk. Take a peek at that planted betta tank. Take a look at this thing. Just a jungle full of hornwort, Java fern, Anubias, caves, wood. bunch of baby plecos, and a beautiful betta that's turned out to be very robust, even though I bought them from a cup at a big box store. All right, give me a minute to set the camera back up, and we'll go ahead and answer any more questions you might have. Well, there you go. You got an impromptu walk through the fish room, something I do from time to time on a live stream. Hope you enjoyed that. Let me see if you have any other questions for me. It looks like some good discussions going on within the chat. I guess you're talking a little bit about salt. You know, at first I was very reluctant about salt. By the way, the salt that I use is the Fritz A+ salt. And I became a believer. I became a believer in that salt when I had a Autopharynx tetrastigma that ballooned out. He looked like a porcupine. All his scales were sticking out. His eyes were bulging. Anyway, he was obviously having some difficulty with fluids in the body, and I put him into a little 5-gallon quarantine tank with salt, prepared to find him the next morning, you know, floating upside down, and he was fine. Within 2 days, he looked normal. Within 5 days, I was able to put him back in the main tank. So I became a big believer in salt. Michael lost his Rhodesiae yellow to my trout. Wow. Yeah, trouts can go off sometimes. I mean, mine, for whatever reason, and again, there's a lot of moving parts here. These fish have spent a lot of time together. They came over from the 55. They came over from the 55 to the 210 to the 300. They're all comparable in size, except maybe for that little squirt Venusis. And there's a lot of room. I mean, there's 7 feet, and there's those big giant artificial plants. So it gives them, like, it breaks up the line of sight. So there's several factors involved in why this tank seems to get along, and those all may have something to do with it. Let's see here. Any other questions for me? Go ahead and hit me now. GP had to hit the road. Thank you, GP, for coming by. You are appreciated. Whips World, Jeremy Moore, Paul. All right. Well, I think we are actually a little bit over the hour. So I will go ahead. And at this point, I think we can go ahead and get into the wrap up. See that some of you might have bailed during the walkthrough. That's okay. All right. So anyway, thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you to my wonderful moderators, and thank you to all of you who turned up today and subscribed and gave it a thumbs up and a like and all that good stuff. And I hope to see you next Saturday, same time. And We'll have an interesting discussion then, I am sure. Thank you, my friends. Thank you, everybody, and I will see you again soon.